Okay, when I rolled up at 10 till 7, they were already here and they are starting to set up the pump for the concrete. So this is one of the problems. Our gate is too small. It was barely able to get the trash trailers in and the dump truck for the sand. Actually, it wasn't a dump truck, it was a dump trailer. Much smaller than a dump truck. But the concrete truck will come up and discharge the concrete into this hopper, and it will pump the concrete through this pipe and into the house. The only other option is a wheelbarrow, which would be horrible, or one of those little motorized concrete trolleys, I call it. I don't know what the correct name for it is, but that would be very slow and tedious also. So this will make quick work of the pour when the truck gets here. So we're expecting the truck in about an hour, hour and a half. So they're doing last minute work to get set up. So I have opened a couple of more windows. They've got their lights outside shining in. That area was dark over there, and that window had actually never been open, so we've got it open. I've taken the plywood, well, and it's, oh, there it is, taking the plywood off. And it looks like it's going to start in this back corner and work their way towards the window. You can see the kitchen area is much more lit up. And now they're building the curb, which will keep water, hopefully, from pouring in here. Okay, we are on day 2.5 down here, and they're getting ready for the pour. So I'm going to recap real quickly everything that's going on and why we did some of the things we did, especially for the viewers who haven't been following us from the beginning and know about all the water problems we had down here. I got a question on the last video about would this solve the water problem, since the issue with water right now seems to be the water table coming up and water coming from the bottom. So the answer to that is hopefully yes. That water table issue has always been here in Galveston. It happens in every house, and a lot of houses are built up high, but a lot of them are built on slab in parts of the island. And so just like any other foundation, we've brought in sand, we've laid down plastic to help stop that moisture from rising up into the concrete, and we're doing everything we can to keep that water from coming up through the concrete. Although concrete is like a giant hard sponge, it will absorb water, so moisture will always be a bit of a problem down here, and it gets very, very complicated about trying to keep the humidity low and not cause other problems. We'll get into the nerdiness of that later when we talk about climate control that we have to do in the house. But for right now, we think we have the water problem solved. So remember, there was the water coming up from the ground. There was the water coming in from all of the openings that were designed to bring water into the big cistern that used to be right below where I'm standing. And then the last bit of water problem we have is out here, and I'm going to get on the other side of the camera and walk you around and show you that problem and some other things that are going on down here. So while they're waiting on the concrete, they're doing this last little bit of forming. I'm going to get on the outside because I think you can see it better, but take a look right now at this concrete kind of threshold, let's call it. So that threshold is very close to the ground level, and we've talked about the water problem of how much water comes off the roof right here and into this area. And it channels itself over and runs over that threshold and into the basement. And there's so much of it that we've seen the flow pattern in the dirt all the way around almost to the front. So to solve that problem, at one time there were steps and a big curb out here. We removed that, and when we did, we caused that problem. Now we took it out because it was a safety issue and we needed to do some other things, and we knew we would be pouring a new threshold in here that was much higher even than the curb that used to be here. But before we could do that, remember this door was very short because the island was raised about 18 inches here, and it made this like a little hobbit door. So Ricardo and his crew came in and raised the opening of that door as high as we could go, so that when we do raise this curb, we would actually have a reasonably sized doorway. If we had raised it before doing that, we would have had maybe a 4-foot door in here. Not really good for getting in and out to do work. So we started off the week with some problems with Mother Nature and too much water. Things improved dramatically and they were able to knock this out. Fortunately, the pour is happening today because we are expecting our crazy weather down here. It's supposed to be in the 20s potentially on Monday. So that gives us 4 days, almost 5, for this concrete to cure at a reasonable temperature. If it were that cold, we couldn't do the pour, but it's in the 60s right now. It's going to be great weather until Monday night. So we have plenty of time for this to cure before that cold weather comes in. Let me go back inside and show you what happened with the electrician yesterday. The light's a little dim. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm standing here by a copper rod that's in the ground. It was at least 7 feet tall. There's about a foot sticking up. It's clamped to a copper wire, and that copper wire runs along the rebar and is clamped in various places. And that is what is called a UFER ground. That's what we call it in the US anyway. I think it's actually UFER because it was invented by a German guy named UFER in World War II. And the reason it came about is traditionally electricity has been grounded with a copper rod in the ground. But copper is expensive, and in wartime it was considered very precious, so they were looking for an alternative way to effectively ground construction. And so they came up with this idea of connecting ground wires to the rebar in foundations. So we have the appropriate length of rebar. 20 feet is what is required. Rebar actually comes in 20 feet lengths. That's probably where the code came from. But this is a supplemental grounding. We have a grounding outside, but this one will come up and go into our panels here in the mechanical room. So this is one of those things that it's important to plan ahead, because once the foundation is poured, obviously this would not be an option. But because we're working with the electrician through all the stages way before we ever get to the wiring in here, he's helping us kind of plan and do the things we need to do. So one of the things we needed to know was where the wall would be for the mechanical room and where we would be placing the electrical panels, because this will go up directly into one of those 2 interior electrical panels. So that was a quick 10-minute thing yesterday. Not a lot of cost in material, but something that will help this house be a little safer and function better. So here it is, clamped to the rebar, and it extends, I don't know, probably 20 feet, 15 feet. And then it's clamped to the rod going in the ground here. And then he'll untape this wire and bend that up and bring it into the panel. Okay, I spared y'all all the beeping because it is a little obnoxious, but they got out their very fancy laser level and have been double checking the floor and the layout of everything, because we're going to match this floor right here. That's the height that everything will need to be. So that's what drove all of the kind of design in here. And we do have a problem because that floor is about 2 inches lower than the floor that was poured over here on the west side years ago. It should not be a problem in this area because we'll have a wall for the mechanical room there, a wall for the mechanical room there. What I don't know is how it transitions under this pile of stuff. So that is something we'll just have to work with. when we get all that cleared away and see what we've got. But it looks like they're almost ready to get started. We're just waiting now on the concrete delivery. I take that back. The concrete is here. I thought I heard something outside. Let me go out and show you. They're getting all their floats out to smooth the floor. Here we go. Well, let's go check it on the other end. See if I can run around there before it starts coming out. They're getting booted up. I'm going to run. Well, no, I'm not going to run. I don't need another incident with my ankle. I'm going to walk and look at the ground. So I don't know what I'm showing you on the camera because I'm going to pay attention to my feet. Okay, so it's not coming out yet. It'll take it a little while to get here. I don't know what the volume is of that pipe. Oh, I hear it. It's gurgling. Oh, it's vibrating. Oh, big gurgle. I hear it. There it is. There's the water. He ran water through it first before he started the concrete flow. The suspense is killing me. I know if I turn the camera off, though, that's when it will shoot out. Because that's how those things always work. All right, I hear something again. They're hitting it with the sledgehammer. It must have an airlock in it. So why are they hitting it? Does it have an airlock in it or something?
Yeah, they're kind of like priming it.
So they're priming it. Whoop. There it goes. Turns out there were some big chunks of concrete or debris in the tube, and the tube is slightly flexible, so when they hit it, they were flexing those sides and breaking that loose. Once they got it all broken loose and cleared out the end of the pipe, then everything started flowing. This may look a little silly, but it's actually an incredibly efficient way to do this. This pipe, when it's full of concrete, weighs hundreds of pounds, and they have to carry it all over this basement floor to get the concrete to flow in the right place. He's going to wear it. So using this strap to hold up the concrete allows them to put the weight on their shoulder and stand upright so that they're not having to use their back muscles to continually lift and bend and pick this thing up. And concrete comes in like grades, so it's rated like PSI, or how is it rated?
Yeah, by PSI.
By PSI?
3,000 PSI.
This is 3,000 PSI.
Comes out great after a couple of weeks. It cures out white.
I was just telling them how lucky we are that cold front isn't here now. So we've got 4 days to cure.
Yeah, because the hose is too heavy, it would just break them.
The hose would squish it down.
Yeah.
So they'll fill and back this hose out. Kind of, as I said, work their way backwards to exit out that window where it's coming in. We were lucky at the Lucas Apartments when we put concrete in the floor of one of the carriage houses there, and that the truck could back up in the alley and just put the delivery chute straight through a window and come directly out of the truck. This is a little more involved and adds a little bit of expense. But it's so worth it to have this pump. That's good. Now it's getting a little reinforcement. And those were called saddles, you said? Stirrups. Stirrups. I knew it was horse related. I think I called it a saddle the other day. So a stirrup, which makes more sense. It looks like a stirrup. So I think I'm going to write my name in this. I waited too late to do it on the sidewalk. It came out very messy. It's getting a nice little rounded edge, so when the form gets taken off, it doesn't have that sharp edge. I'm going to go around the other side. I was just talking to Sebastian. That cement truck holds 10 yards, and he thinks we need 23. He's hoping to make it in 20, but they just don't know. It's such an irregular shape. He measured and calculated, but 2 full trucks are being delivered, and then something he called a kicker, which is just a small yardage if they need a little bit to finish up. At first it wasn't coming out because this heavier concrete that comes out first blocked the pipe, so they actually disconnected here to get it to free up. So Sebastian's just throwing it in a wheelbarrow to go dump it in. Less mess to clean up afterwards. We do have an absolute fabulous day to do this work. This could not be any prettier down here today. So we are very grateful for that. So my free Lasgu laser level that I got is coming in very handy. Sebastian just asked if they could use it again down there. They're used to that one they have. They've never worked with one like this, but they loved it and used it the other day all day long because it lets them see visually that line on the wall where the concrete needs to go to, so they don't have to keep remeasuring all the time. So I'm going to put the extra battery that came with it on because I had it on 8 hours the other day, and I think the battery lasts 20 hours, but just to give them a fresh battery and go get that set up for them. So I made sure I had it in self-leveling mode. And again, I've got it lined up exactly at the height of this slab so that they can see the markings. Now the problem we have today is it's lighter in here, so the line is faint, but you can see it on that far wall. So hopefully that will help them go a little faster. All right, I've let y'all hyperlapse for a while, but I wanted to show you what's going on. So we had to move the level up to the floor. So now it is exactly 4 inches higher than it should be, the line. So they can see it, and they're just using a tape measure to kind of measure as they go, but it still gives them a nice visual. But they're pouring this direction, and so they were worried about concrete kind of getting on my toy, but it's coming along really well. I think the first truck is almost empty because that beam that we put in just by itself holds 4 yards of concrete. So that's almost half the truck right there in that beam. It doesn't look like that much, but it really is. So the next truck should be coming soon. So they're just working on doing a preliminary kind of level. Oops, we just had a guy go in the beam. That's not good. So I don't know if I think it went in his boot. But once the concrete's poured, he's not going to be able to see where that is. So I'm not the only klutz. I forgot to show you guys this area. This is under the stairs, and it's between this wall of the cistern right here and the outside wall. And it's where the old sewer line used to go out. And it's just another playground for the termites. So they're going to pour concrete in here and just seal this off. And then we'll have to come back and redo some of those rigged up supports for the stairs and do some work under here and maybe patch that a little bit, but at least we'll get most of this filled in and closed up. Just another source of moisture coming up into this area. The old cast iron sewer line was there, and it's very big and very thick, and it was not rusted in this spot. So fortunately Sebastian had that giant circular saw that they used to cut rebar, and he was able to get it out, although it was a tight fit in there. There she goes. There it goes. Okay, Joe is here, so go take a peek, see what you think. She brought my work shirts.
Oh, wow.
Looks different, doesn't it?
It's got a floor.
I know.
And it's all level.
And the ceiling looks so much lower because, you know, we were down 7 or 8 inches with the old floor being out and everything. But it's still going to be just over 7 feet. It's still just over 7 feet. It's fine. But yeah, isn't that cool?
Gosh, it's different.
It's very different.
It's so different.
This is such hard, physically demanding work, and these guys never took a break. There was a little bit of a lull between the concrete trucks, but they still had work to do. So I just am awed at how strong they are and their work ethic, that they just keep going, because the concrete starts immediately to set up, so that they have to time this just right to get everything done. So all of the area to the back was finished. They moved that flexible piping over to the far side up against the chauffeur's quarters and started filling that area in, and then working their way back towards the window where that pipe was coming in. Once they get it all filled, then they have to do the preliminary leveling and start on the finishing work. I have a small problem. My sawhorses are over there. They are not the collapsible kind, and they will not fit through these studs. And they've poured concrete over there, but I think I can wind my way back from that window through these wood piles and over here to come fetch them, because Heather and I need them for a project upstairs. So I'm going to give it a go. Okay, as I climbed over to get sawhorses, I answered that question of where does that slab change height. It's right here under the receiving hall. So there's my sawhorses. I've made it this far. So when this is gift shop area, we'll have to do something with this change in elevation. Probably add some concrete to make that a slope. I'm not sure. We have to get everything cleared out down here and make that decision later. So not today. Joe and Pat are on frond patrol.
Picture me carrying 2 fronds, and I just carried a bundle of like 17.
They can't hear you. You're not mic'd. There's a lot to pick up. Yeah, let's get all this cleaned out and roll up that rug. Move this furniture out of the way. We're going to set up the sawhorses. Tarp. I need a tarp. I'll go find the tarp. The tarp. I'll go get the tarp.
Yes. Oh my God, yes, they look like, yeah.
What do you think?
Look at that. Wow.
We still have to put the, I have to center one of them a little better
Yeah, I see
and
that, but-
put the board.
That's still way better than, way better than junky plywood.
But
Yes.
this one, when you come in, I think it makes such a huge difference.
Yeah.
It looks like crunchy and all that junk.
Out the, well, you can film them. Film them. We're cleaning out the parlor. We're done with being pretty and we're getting back into work mode.
Towards Joe.
I'm gonna read it. So,
So I brought various stripping things today. Pat and Joe are going to undertake some detailed stripping, run some tests. Heather and I are going to work on the parlor windows.
Try to come as often as I can around my work schedule. Someone accused me in my district office of being a lady of leisure. Absolutely hysterical. I did look like a lady of leisure, but I definitely am not. So I showed what I can work on my work schedule.
Your outfit was amazing.
Oh, well, thank you.
So we've got plywood on the front porch, so we do need to open the front doors. We're going to lay plywood over here and create a stable work surface to pick up those windows. I've got you on something else.
Okay, so
I brought paint stripper and a little specialty detail tool
To work on this.
to start testing and see if we can get these cleared out. So I thought we could put some paper down
Okay.
and you can test a row and see how that works. This video is already getting too long, so I will save all of the work that Pat, Joe, Heather, and I did upstairs for another day and get back to focusing on the concrete work in the basement, because that was really the star of the show today. As we've talked about, this has been a long time coming and it is such an exciting step for us to get finished down there. By the time I got back in the basement, they had almost finished filling up that area over by the chauffeur's quarters and were just about to come to the end of where they needed to put concrete down, and they were taking that extra length of piping off and backing their way gradually out of the window. This was probably about, I don't know, 10:15 in the morning, so a little over 3 hours to pour the concrete, or maybe just right at 3 hours to pour the concrete. But it did take them the rest of the day to do all of the finishing work. As they're pouring the concrete, it's pushing that rebar grid down against the plastic. And if you notice, they lift in, pick that up, and pull it back up into the concrete. I asked Sebastian why they didn't use those little plastic spacers that I've seen on some jobs, and he said in his experience that when they're using this big pipe and pump system to bring the concrete in, the weight of it breaks those and collapses that rebar down to the ground anyway, so they're really not effective. So they prefer just to leave them out, and then as they're working with the concrete, pull that rebar up into the concrete. And just look how he struggles with that pipe. These things are heavy. My guess is they weigh 60 to 80 pounds. Okay, because I'm a nerd, I looked it up. Each 10-foot section of pipe weighs 6.47 pounds per foot, so that is about 65 pounds for each length of hose, and that hose cost $605 per section. Okay, today is our lucky day. They have about 3 wheelbarrows of concrete left that they need to dispose of, and I just happen to have 3 areas of transition from the sidewalk to our dirt, where we took out our broken sidewalk, and I was going to build a dirt ramp, but this is not permanent, so they can just dump the concrete, make a little ramp, and when we're ready, we'll tear it out and put in a legitimate sidewalk in this area. But this will solve the problem of having the drop off. Yeah, this one's more important. This one's more important than the others. So just like from here to there. And I'll fill up to it with some dirt. I'll rake the dirt up to the edge of it. For all of my worry about having to pick a concrete contractor that I've never worked with before, things could not have worked out better. Sebastian and his crew were incredibly nice. There was another porta potty incident, if you saw a video a couple of weeks ago about me cleaning that, and poor Sebastian went in there and cleaned it himself without telling me, just because he knew we had women in the house and might need to use the porta potty. So that is what I call going above and beyond the call of duty. There was also quite a bit of mess in the yard because the ground was so saturated. Everything was making ruts and just a mess, and they spent a lot of time without me saying anything, raking and cleaning and trying to put everything back so that you could not tell they had been here. So I can't say enough good things, and we are again so thrilled to get this work done. The concrete's set up for a little while, so the forms are coming out. We'll do some finishing work on this step. haven't been able to film a lot of the finishing because I can't walk in there. But you can see they're doing the final kind of smoothing out. They haven't done this area in here yet. You can see it's still kind of streaky and messed up. But he's got that long float that just glides along the surface and smooths everything. Because we are not putting any kind of floor in here. It will just be a bare concrete floor. We still have flooding risk, so all our fixtures, everything will be very durable, very minimal, and very low cost. Okay, as you can see, it was a very busy week at the League-Kempner House. We did a lot of work to get that beam down so we could get those posts out of the way so this wonderful concrete floor could be poured. The guys did a great job. We put a fairly smooth surface on it. It was a little dark down here, so they weren't able to see as well as they could. There's a few little tool marks and things, but that's not going to be very important for us. We can either buff those down or just leave them as long as they're not high enough to be a tripping hazard. But overall, I think they did a fabulous job, and it looks so different down here than it did. Joe and I have been anxious to come and see it completely finished. I had to leave a little bit early. It was my daughter's birthday the day they poured, and Joe is busy doing some stuff for an event we have coming up next October. So this is our first trip back, and it is freezing cold. We are bundled up and still cold down here. It's about 36 degrees in the house, about 38 here in the basement. And for Texans, that's really, really cold. But we're going to stick around and shoot next week's video for you guys, where we're going to get a little nerdy about everything that went on and kind of wrap up this space and talk about next steps. So be sure and turn on your notifications, subscribe, and come back next week, and we'll have a detailed tour of this basement and tell you all the exciting things that are going to go on down here. So again, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. We're the League-Kempner House. Be sure and check out our website and donate, volunteer, subscribe, watch the videos. All those things help us tremendously. Thanks.